Hello, lovelies. So today I wanted to talk about healing our body. And I want to kind of unpack that a little bit for you because for myself as a practitioner, I have many different tools that I use, and there's many different layers as well that I use. And so, sorry, let's get sat up a little better here. So I just wanted to be able to talk about that so that anytime you guys feel like there's things within your being that you still need to work through or that you need to heal so that you can access your inner wisdom and that you can access divine health. And so I was going to talk about that today, and um, we're going to talk about essentially the body mind mapping and assessment and all the different areas that I do healing with my clients and how you guys can do that on your own. So to begin this conversation, I think I wanted to start with the seven energy centers or the chakras, because really this is something that should be just basic knowledge for everybody, because we do have seven energy centers that run from the base of the spine up to the top of the head, which is our crown chakra. And these energy centers all have different organs underneath every energy center, and they all are responsible for different um, physical disease in our body and also responsible for the emotional aspects of our life. And I also want to start off by saying when I do the body mind mapping um, and assessments with my client, we're also looking at three energy bodies. So, yes, we're looking at the seven energy centers, which would make up the physical body, but we're also looking at the mind and the aura. And so, even through all of those things, they will accompany or they will be equal to our thoughts, our emotions, um, energy, our actions, and any kind of physical disease or symptoms that we hold within the body, as well as trauma. And so, starting at the base of the spine is the root chakra. Now, the root chakra is the first energy center and it represents our foundation. So, it sits at the base of the spine and it gives us that feeling of being grounded. So, when our root chakra is open, we feel confident in our ability to withstand challenges or stand on our own 2 feet. When it's blocked, we feel threatened, as if we're on unstable ground. We don't really feel grounded. We may have that scattered feeling that I often talk about. And also, it also would, you know, it's part of the survival issues that we might have with financial independence, money, and food and shelter, and just the basics that we feel able to provide those for ourselves. When it's open and when it's blocked, we don't feel able to. And um, the second chakra is our sacral chakra. So our sacral chakra is just below the belly button and just um, above the hips, and kind of almost if you go from the hips just down to below the belly button and the belly button. So our sacral chakra helps inform how we relate to our emotions and the emotions of others. It governs creativity and our sexual energy. And so a blocked chakra would cause us to feel stagnant, stuck, blocked, feeling like we don't have a lack of control, or feeling that we have a lack of control in our life. And also, I always say this for the entrepreneurs out there that this is what, blocks our creativity and helps us to be in a state of flow. So it also will control your sense of abundance, well-being, pleasure, and sexuality. So anytime we feel like we have any kind of sexual issues, um, it would be stemming from the sacral chakra. And then just above our belly button, we have the solar plexus. Now, the solar plexus is um, the center that is responsible for our confidence and for the sense of control in our life. So it also is to me that, you know, when you're out in public and you maybe have that sense of intuition, I, for me, it comes from the belly as well, that we can feel our intuitive nature in our belly. Um, and then you hear the expression butterflies in our stomach. This is from the solar plexus. And so when we have this blocked energy center, that you might feel overwhelming feelings of shame, of guilt, of self-doubt. You'll feel it there. Our solar plexus is our self-worth and our self-confidence and self-esteem centers. And then the next one is our heart. And so the heart chakra is the bridge between the upper and the lower chakras. It's, of course, associated with love, our ability to give and receive love, joy, and our inner peace. And, it is that bridge, as I say, from the lower and the top. Now, the lower chakras are are considered when we have, as I said, with the solar plexus, with the feelings of shame and guilt, and with the root chakra, is our sense of stability, groundedness, being able to provide the basic needs. So the heart is that bridge between the lower, which I often refer to anytime that we are in feelings of lack or in survival emergency mode, we are always in the lower three chakras. And the top three chakras are all about our divinity, our spirituality, our intuitiveness. And so then above the heart, we have um, the throat. And so, of course, our throat chakra gives voice to what the heart feels. It controls our ability to communicate our personal power. It allows us to express ourselves, to express that creativity coming from the sacral chakra. It is our true, authentic voice. And it's all about communication and self-expression. And when that's blocked, we don't feel like we are heard. We don't feel like um, we're listened to. We don't speak our truth. We're not really standing in our power because we're not able to express ourselves and our power. And so the throat chakra is really such an important energy center. And then above the throat, we have our third eye, and that's here. So, again, coming up to the higher realms is all about manifestation, about communication with the divine, being connected to the divine. And so the third eye, it controls the ability to be able to see the big picture and to connect to our intuition because opposite to the third eye in the base of the skull or the back of the head is our pineal gland. And that is our gland of intuition and of opening up to the divine. And so our imagination comes from the third eye, intuition, and also our wisdom. And so then after the third eye, we have our crown chakra. And this is the highest chakra. And so it sits on the crown of the head and represents our ability to be fully connected spiritually. When when we're fully open, our crown chakra, we have an ability to access higher consciousness, the inner and outer beauty, and our spiritual connection to source. And so when that's blocked, we don't feel like there is something more than what we see with the physical eye and in this physical realm. We don't believe that we're connected to a higher power or to our highest self, that there's not a consciousness. Um, excuse me. And so it's really important that our both ends, the top and the body, are fully open. And also, if you think about it, our connection to source comes through the crown and goes all the way down to the root chakra, and then through the earth, which grounds us to this realm and to our physicality in our body, to this realm, to this dimension. And so that's really, really important. Now, we can, and I do teach this with my clients, is the ability to sense and to be able to do check-ins, multiple check-ins throughout the day on how you're feeling. And so when we do that, it really is a sensing that happens because we have this ability to sense our world and everything in our world, because everything in our world is made up of energy. And once we know the seven energy centers, and once you can tell and sense whether something is out of whack, like just off balance, whether there's a blockage somewhere. I am also going to I'll put a link in the description section for a template that will explain the seven energy centers so you know when it's balanced and when it's blocked, because those things are really important. And the first place to start with all of this, unpacking all of this, the healing tools, is to be able to utilize your own ability to connect with your being. So the best way to access and sense our energy centers is to have mindfulness practices all the time. And so, some things that we can do throughout the day. Now, I love this one, the alarm system, where if you just put on an alarm on your phone that goes off every hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, to be able to just stop what you're doing, put down your phone, um, your keyboards, the computer, sitting back from your desk, just be able to sit back for a moment and check in. And really, when you're checking in, you're going to feel within your being, sensing energy going from the root and just really, feeling. And I know like a really great thing is touching the energy centers, because our focus will shift. Our brain just naturally will focus to wherever we feel that little bit of touch or pressure within our body. And when you do that, you're just feeling like, okay, you know what? Like I have cramps right now, or my stomach feels really hard, really heavy, and I can sense that I feel really tired. Excuse me. For myself, I just ate. And so if I sit here and I feel into my body, I can feel that my body feels very tired, that my head feels a little heavy, and that my stomach definitely feels really bloated. And so what I can do with that information is I'm aware of my being and how I'm feeling, But I also can take note. Okay, I had some ramen noodles. So what did I put in that? And, maybe they were too heavy. Maybe I ate too much. Um, you can really just assess every time you eat. You can sense how your body feels with the food that you've eaten, with something that you've drank. Um, different times throughout the day, you can really feel how your energy is feeling. And if you start to document all that, then you work your day around all of that. So if I discover that at 1 o'clock, my alarm goes off and um, now I'm checking to see um, how I'm feeling. And at 1 o'clock, if I feel like, wow, like my energy feels really, really low at this time, and I can check in, well, okay, why? What, did I just eat? Was I around a lot of people? Do I need to, try clearing my body? Do I need to take some kind of drink like a tea or a smoothie, adding some reishi, some cordyceps, some ashwagandha, some like adaptogens into your drink so that you feel a lot more energized? Or do I need to make a tea with some ginger so that I can help my food to digest, or some fennel? You can really just get a sense of where you're needing um, how you're feeling and what you're needing to do for yourself to feel better. And this really isn't this key, because throughout the day we really want to monitor our energy, the food we're eating, the people we're around, and how our body's feeling. When we can do that, we can also start to pay attention and notice any kind of symptoms of disease within our body. So this is how we keep ourselves healthy and away from doctors, so that we can look after ourselves and make sure that we're always in good health. Or if we're entrepreneurs, you really want to optimize your energy throughout the day, and you're going to need to know where your energy is going in terms of what's my focus, who are the people I focus on, what are the distractions. And so being really aware of everything to do with who you are is key to success in every area of your life. So okay, so that's one way of doing it, is by setting an alarm on your phone. Um, I would suggest for the first, when you first start this, putting it every hour. When you put it on every hour, you're able to check in at, better times because they're closer together. And you're really going from, let's say, not knowing anything to figuring out a schedule. Just think of it that way. So it's really good to do that every hour. And then, um, yeah, asking yourself that, putting your hand gently on every one of your chakras, and just picking up how you're feeling. See if you can, sometimes I know that when I was in my career, and when I would stop at the end of the day, or on my lunchtime, and when I did actually, reflect inside, sometimes I could literally feel my energy just vibrating, just really buzzing. And so I know what that meant was that there was so much energy generated by my thinking, my thoughts, the communication, the exchanges of energy of the people throughout my day. And so really at that time, would be a great time to really do some breath work so that you're grounding your energy, calming the nervous system, and then also clearing. I probably just said that, but yeah, clearing your energy centers, because you're going to want to not hold all this energy and take it home with you at the end of the day. So that is the energy centers. Also, with the energy centers, some other things that you could be aware of is, do you feel any kind of pain in any energy center? Do things um, do things feel, can you feel that? I've noticed a lot of times for me that the left side of my where my solar plexus is often bigger than the right. And so to me, what that tells me is that I know I have fibroids, and I can tell if there's more inflammation on the left-hand side of my body. And so then I want to be able to work with minimizing that inflammation and probably that bloating, which is going to be gas, um, which could be again inflammation, which is maybe too much acidity in the body. And I'm going to want to be able to really take notice so that, because when you're bloated or you have lots of gas, you feel really tired. It's hard, you become slower. And so you're not really productive in your day. And as an entrepreneur, you're not really productive in your day and in doing the work that you're doing because you won't have the energy because you'll feel slower, you'll feel more laggy. Um, so that's for the energy centers. So those are reasons why we really want to be aware of that. So let's go back to now the three energy bodies in terms of our aura, our mind, and our physical body. So we know that maybe you do, maybe you don't, but our body has so much wisdom. It is key to everything because through assessing our body, we'll know where our traumas have been stored, and how we know that is by mapping it out. So again, I know I've spoke about drawing out, tracing out the body, and from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes to just really map out any physical ailments. Maybe you have sharp radiating pain in your elbow from your wrist to your elbow. Maybe you have a lot of pain on your left side. And this is something that you experience a lot. Maybe you have had a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis or fibroids or lupus or anything like that, where you really want to map those things out in your body. And then once you have all those mapped out, now again, I guess when I'll explain the mapping process. Because really when we're mapping symptoms within our body, we don't just want to draw dots all over our body. We actually want to be able to give it a physical appearance, so to speak, because we do better, the mind will do better when it can see a physical form, a physical shape. So you might again give it the shape of a drum. Maybe you deal with pounding headaches 3 times a week or migraines that feel like lightning bolts in your head. You'll want to give any kind of symptom within your body a physical form. So now we're going to map that out. So maybe there's a drum in your head. Maybe there is a balloon, a water balloon in your gut because you feel like it bloats and you notice that all the time it goes up and it goes down and it goes up and it goes down. Or it's just uncomfortable. And if you deal with that on a consistent basis, then that's something you want to map out. So again, mapping out, giving form, physical form to things in your body, to those symptoms and disease. The next thing then I always say is to, and so besides giving symptoms within our body physical form, we also want to give it a color. So when you're mapping out your body and you give something a physical shape, but you also give something color, what you're doing is you're looking at this actually like a mindfulness project, right? Where you're really giving a visual map to yourself to be able to put up on your wall and to be able to really look at the map and to see where it is right now and where it's going to. And then in 6 months down the road, that map might totally change. And so this is what we want to do, is to build this real visual map. And so maybe the drum is black because the pain in your head is dull. Excuse me. Maybe you want to give the color red to the drum because, the pain in your head, that pounding headache that you get often feels sharp. So just being able to give it those shapes and the color is a really, really important thing to do. And so once all of that is all mapped out, we want to be able to put that somewhere in front of us, and you want to be able to look at that. So you can all do this at home for sure. You don't have to have a life-size paper to draw it on. You can just have an 8 by 10, or better yet, get a legal size paper, tape them together, and make like a lot of space, because you do want room on it to be able to write, to be able to map your aura and stuff and, like that. Um, so now also I teach this to coaches and to health practitioners, because this is really a wonderful tool to have for your clients. Because what I find when I do this with my clients is that it really helps them to be able to visualize, and then to go back and to look at when these things began. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So I do have this training that I do work with. If you are an organization that, maybe it's like a women's shelter or an addiction center, and you're in, the nonprofit sector where you're working with high risk adults or youth, um, this is a great tool to have to be able to help them to identify their traumas and to be able to release those traumas. But not only that, especially for adults, because by the time we're adults, these traumas have manifested into a physical ailment, typically by the time you're an adult. So I do have that training, and I'll leave my email. You can always contact me if you have questions or concerns. Any of you can do that. So, um, so now you've mapped out your body with any kind of symptoms, physical symptoms that you're feeling. And now these are physical symptoms that you experience often. Um, you know, you would know if I said, how are you feeling? You're going to tell me certain symptoms or certain diseases that you have, certain diagnosis that you have, or something that you're dealing with long term or chronically that no one's diagnosed. So you'll know what you're mapping out for sure in the body, not to worry about that. And so when all of that is done, now, it's posted in front of either your client or for yourself. And now you're able to just look at that. And the first thing I would want you to do is just to really sit there with this drawing and just really visually take it in. And just notice what you're feeling in your body. Is there anxiety when you look at this picture? Um, just how does it make you feel? And then we start to go from top to bottom and start talking about the symptoms. So, for instance, if you have a diagnosis of chronic fatigue, and you've, you know, um, most likely will have drawn out either a cup, a well, a measuring cup, or a battery as your body. And maybe you've drawn a battery and that battery is really low. So we're going to start with, from the top to the bottom and start looking at the symptoms. And then what I do with my clients is I just ask, okay, when did you notice this started? Can you talk about that? And chances are that most of the symptoms that we see within the body are, you know, um, are bits of trauma that have, been with them for a long time. And most often than not, the symptoms and the things they're mapping out have been with them for many years. So usually we go back to the past. And so they might say, I started feeling symptoms in my 20s. Or, um, yeah, I suffered with this chronically all my life. I was diagnosed um, when I was 5 years old, for instance. So it could be something like that, or something that, was fairly recent. And then I just talked to them about that. So, what was happening in your life at that time? And, you know, if you have trouble going back or thinking back to that time, the best thing to do is just to do some breath work and to do, close your eyes. And I've taught the 5 minute method before, which is just, you know, inhaling deeply to pull up your energy to the top of the crown, and then exhaling, and then to be able to just center yourself. And now taking 4 inhales through the nose to the count of 5, and exhaling for the count of 6. And just doing that a few times, because now that's putting us in a restful, peaceful state. Our nervous system is calm, and now we're more open to and receptive to being able to remember, to be able to think back to that time. And so you just go back to the time of when you felt this symptom start, and looking at what was going on in your life at that time. And, you know, I've never experienced anyone not being able to um, think back to what was happening in their life. So everyone will always, at least in my experiences, have always been able to describe what was happening. And so I just listen really. And so for yourself, if you're doing this at home, you can take out some paper and start to journal around this, because chances are it'll you'll be able to identify um, either an event, some trauma, a traumatic event, something just in your life. If it was, parents divorcing, parents fighting, witnessing an abusive parent hurting their mom, whatever it is for you, um, you'll just write that down, and write just a quick one sentence of what was happening in your life, and giving yourself like a good page. So I would do, okay, what was happening in your life? Number one, here was what was happening. Give yourself the rest of the page to be able to process that one sentence, and continue to do that for everything all down the body. So we're always looking at, when did it start? What was happening in your life? How were you feeling? Can you remember what you were doing at that point in your life? Can you remember and recall the very first moment where that happened to you? And just so now you're just working through this and processing everything on all of those symptoms. And my hope is, when I'm with the client, that they are seeing those connections for themselves without me having to point them out. And, you know, if you're at home watching and this is something you do for yourself, you will be able to start to identify these things for you and yourself. So that is really the biggest portion of this body mind assessment and mapping tool, is the physical body. Because when we're dealing with clients that have autoimmune disease, that have, chronic pain in their body, any kind of diagnosis, and they're struggling with these health issues. And when you at home are just struggling with, feeling blocked or feeling, fatigued, drained, feeling stuck and stagnant, like you can't move through a day. You can't, you can maybe spend an hour or two and then you have to go lie down. When you're dealing with any of these things, it's very difficult. And so, if you found my channel, you're either here to be able to learn how to manifest your best life, or you're looking at how you can feel better in your life. And so that is the biggest thing of this body mind mapping and assessment. But the next part we go to is the mind, because the mind is another really big energetic center, because the mind is where all our thoughts are. And all of our thoughts that are going through our head, and thoughts have energy, words have energy. And so, what I usually do with my clients is I get them to think about the two the two types of emotions, or the two emotions that they tend to teeter on every day, because I always find that there's two emotions that people usually experience. And so when you identify, that could be happy, angry, could be happy, sad, it could be manic and um, depressed. It varies with people. So I get my clients to always just identify those two emotions that they tend to go between. And then, there's always thoughts. Now, of course, we have so many thoughts in a day, way too much that we could probably possibly remember, because most of our thoughts are unconscious thoughts that just play around. But I have yet to find anyone that can't identify thoughts that they continually and habitually think of the most. So, even though it may sound like a hard thing to have to remember, it really isn't, because these are thoughts that you habitually think the majority of the time. And you'll know, when you know the two emotions that you teeter on. Okay, so if it's happy and then sad, you'll know, well, what are the thoughts that I think of that, you know, start to make me feel sad? And most of the time you'll know, because it could either be going between shame and guilt, doubt and fear, anxiety and happiness, anxiety and instability. And typically you're going to realize and discover the thoughts that are chronically plaguing your mind, that you repetitively think of, or that you repetitively access. And so just writing those thoughts around on either side of the mind and the head in your drawing. Because then what we do is we do the same thing that we did within the physical body. So then we're going to go to those thoughts. And here's thought one. So thought one might be, why does everything always happen to me? Or every time I get going, somebody does something and I spiral. Just, it's going to be a thought. So you write that down, and now we go to the thought, and then we're going to do the same thing. So, when did you start to realize that you were thinking these thoughts? If you are a health practitioner, a healer, a counselor, a therapist, or anything, and you're doing this with clients as well. Again, I teach and I train professionals to be able to utilize this as a tool with their clients. So looking at that statement that they've made, and then getting them to be able to look back. So you're going to write that statement or that thought onto a piece of paper and leave yourself a page. And then they're going to be able to, or you are going to be able to write down when you started to notice that you started thinking those thoughts and what was happening in your life when you began to believe that thought or think of that thought. And so typically what I find that I get with my clients will be things such as, well, it just seems like that it's always happened this way for years, that every time something good happens to me, it just spirals out of control. It's like something bad happens. And I say, okay, so is this something, that you heard your parents say or your siblings say? Where did you get this thought from? And so typically they'll go back, and sometimes what they have discovered is that it's a saying or a saying similar, something that your parents said to you, just again, like it's like a blanket statement that they throw out. Do you think money grows on trees? Is a blanket statement that, it's just kind of their go-to thing. I know I heard that all the time through my childhood. Do you think money grows on trees? You kids always want money, but you know what I mean. So, I find that when I'm working with my clients that they'll be able to identify where that thought came from. And if it wasn't from a parent, it could be from an abuser. And typically I find again that my clients are going to be able to process that for themselves and to be able to connect it to something. And so if you're doing this for yourself at home, just again, go to that thought, write it down, think about when you started saying it, and think about what was happening in your life. And, was it a particular person that said it to you? And, or was it a blanket statement that our, parents or our family always say? And you'll be able to recognize if this is something that is just going there in your unconscious all the time, because I know when I'm talking with a client that it's because of the questions that I present to them and the conversation we're having that then triggers them to remember, oh yeah, or it triggers, and because typically it's like, oh, I didn't know I was saying that. And then when we stop and look at that, there's always someone that said that repeatedly, or a particular event that happened. And that's when they started to feel that way, which just progresses to a particular thought, if you know what I mean. So when we recognize the thoughts or when you recognize the thoughts that you think chronically, and these are thoughts that, they don't serve any purpose in your life. They may serve in zapping your energy. They may drain you. They're thoughts that are not uplifting for you. And so we say that they don't serve you in any way. And so now we want to go to that thought. So that thought is written out on paper. The next thing we want to do is look at that thought. And the question is that thought true? And so it could be a thought that, again, um, whenever things are going great in my life, someone comes in to do something that makes my life spiral or sets me back. Let's say it's a statement like that. And then I'll ask, is that statement true? And most of the times my clients will think about that and they'll go, well, yeah, that's usually what happens. And I'm saying, okay, but is it really true? Or is it, um, you get just like, and I'll reflect back to them something, from the situation. It might be okay, or is it, something that you allow yourself to happen? Or do you feel like you're, you're doing really great and then something takes you off your game and then you're, let's say, you're in bed for the next week because you fall back or crumble into this despair. And um, then that's what happens, let's say. So then we look at how can we change that statement so that it serves you, so that it's more uplifting and inspiring. And so, for instance, the one statement I gave you might be now a statement that we change to my life goes great. My life, in my life, things are going great until someone comes in and does something to make me spiral, let's say. So then we might change that statement to when my life is going great, I'm in full control of my energy levels. And even if people distract me, I can get back on my path or I could get back in the game. Do you see what I mean? So just switching that statement around to something more positive, something that is going to energize you or inspire you, that's going to give something back to you, not take from you. And so you would go through that, through all of those thoughts. Okay, so for those of you that are watching from home and are working along with me here, you will want to again write down all of those thoughts, one a page, to be able to give yourself a page to be able to work through those, um, to work through the thoughts, to be able to look at them, look at when you started thinking about that particular thought, what was happening in your life, and then being able to look at, do you really believe that this is true, this statement that you're creating for yourself? And I would ask myself as well, how do you feel when you believe this statement? Write that down. And who would you be if you didn't believe this thought? And then look at turning this thought around. This is called The Work, and it's from Byron Katie. So doing that for each and every one of those questions will help you to be able to switch your mindset, to switch your thoughts and upgrade and scale up that energy of those words and that thoughts, because words have energy, thoughts have energy. And so you really want to switch it so that you're out of those lower three realms, like we talked about, and you're up in the higher realms that are connected to your divinity. And so that's what we do with the thoughts. And then we move to the aura. So the aura is something that I like to include, but it's more to help people to, and more to help you to kind of assess the space around you. So I often think about a couple of things. One is there's that saying, if you are, sorry, um, the saying that one person in a room of 10 can change and can change the mood of the people in that room. So one person can walk into a room and absolutely shift the mood of everybody in there because their energy can be really powerful. And so if that's someone that comes in a really bad mood and they're really negative, and they are, thinking a lot of uh, negative thoughts, that energy emanates from you. And people around you can pick that up and can feel it. Excuse me. And so, um, looking at and assessing your mood the majority of times. Um, so our aura, we can look at it as our energy field, and our energy field is really this magnetic field that is around us. And you know, who the people that that come into our space, the people that we interact with the most, when we come into contact with people all the time, their energy field can touch our energy field. So it's kind of like thinking of the people that you're calling into your space. Who are the people that you spend the most time with? Um, do you feel that you are vibrant? Do people want to come into your space? Do you repel people from you? It's a really good thing to consider and reflect on. For people that are even, single that want relationship, aura is the very first place for you to assess in that situation because if we are working through our trauma, if we have a lot of trauma that's unresolved, our energetic space will reflect that. And so we start to attract people that kind of are on the same wavelength, that it's like this a bit of a dance then with the person that we're attracting because they are going to be someone who also has trauma that is able to trigger your trauma, and maybe their trauma that's triggered is they want to control and to manipulate. So there's this interesting kind of balance in our aura, and an interesting um, field to really assess because it's very um, elusive, almost, if you will. And I just like to look at it in terms of, I always say that I'm very protective of my energy, meaning my energetic field, because I know that if people are in my space that are always, let's say, anxious, fearful, have a lot of guilt or shame, or in the lower three chakras in a negative way, that, I'll feel that and I'll sense that energy. Or, myself, when I go to a mall, let's say, and I'm sitting in the food court, um, you know, and I'm sitting there relaxing or eating and I'm looking out at the people, is that I can feel and pick up the energy of their life as a psychic medium. And, so I never stay too long in places like a mall or, you know, just certain areas because it will you'll feel that and sense it in your energy field. And so it starts to really deplete or bring you down. You feel more heavier if you are in a space where there's denser energies. And typically when you're in any kind of space where there's a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of mix of energies, but I feel like there's like they all kind of coagulate together and it's becomes a heavier, denser energy. And typically that's why I will feel my energy levels go down and I'll feel very fatigued. So I like to kind of get in and out of those spaces quickly. All of that is your aura. And so just if you kind of start to really look at who are the people in my space, how do I feel when I'm around those people? Um, do I feel like I have vitality? Do I feel vibrant and like my energy's high most of the time? Or do I feel really draggy and slow and um, just do I feel dense? So that all of that, you're kind of looking at your aura. And usually I tell my clients that they can write stuff, excuse me, write that stuff down. That's why I like to, if you have a bigger piece of paper where you have room on the sides to be able to write that down. You can also, draw a rainbow around you, and maybe you're drawing a rainbow that has a lot of pieces missing, or lower colors on this side and vibrant colors on that side. Just really assessing and feeling your energetic presence, and how do you show up in the world most of the days. That would be your energy center and your aura. So those are all things that we assess. So now all of that is mapped out, and it really is quite a magnificent picture when it's hanging in front of you, when it's life size. And now you've already done that work of looking at when stuff started. That's a big piece of it. When you bring that awareness to, wow, I was diagnosed, or I started having these chronic fatigue symptoms in my early 20s when I was in this job and this happened, or when I met my husband, my now husband, and I can see that, I felt this way and it triggered thoughts from my childhood, something that a parent said or an abuser said. It's quite a significant process. And even though the steps seem really, really small, it makes such a big impact when people are able to physically see the colors, the objects, and um, can really, really assess every aspect of our lives. And then, really, what I do with my clients, and for this last part, is to take them through a visually guided meditation where we are going from the top again to that picture of the drum, and we are first pulling up all our energy up to the top of the head, that we are becoming more energy than matter. And how we do that is through meditation, breath work, and really shifting the energy in our body. This is when we access the quantum. We're shifting our brain wave from beta into delta, even better into gamma, so that we now are pure energy. And from that state, we are now looking at that illuminated object, and you are seeing it visually shrink, 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 shrink till it's a dot that you could just pick up and go and blow it, and it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And so there's energetic healing that happens. There's also the analytical, or the thinking healing that happens by just being aware and noticing the exact event, the time, what was happening in your life, and making those connections and correlations. You're able to now be able to see that situation from the standpoint of um, a strong adult that is no longer that child, no longer, helpless or feeling hopeless, because we are powerful beings that are the creators of our life. And so, really looking at it from that perspective now is powerful. Excuse me, and it really will make a significant difference. And so, really, you are going through the whole map, going through all those objects and seeing them shrink after you're now in this elevated state. And I did forget to mention, while you're pulling up your energy, you're accessing a higher brainwave, you're also having an elevated emotion like gratitude. And so just being in this real high state of gratitude and a theta brainwave, then everything, you're more able to manifest that. So that's it. That's the process. And again, if you are a therapist or in the nonprofit sector, this is a great process to do with clients. And again, I do training in more detail and we go through each process, each step of the way. And I will put my email to contact me in the description underneath this video. And if you are at home, if you have any questions, please just put a question in the comment and I promise I will answer that. And if you do this, please let me know as well in the comment section how it's working for you and how are you finding it, and then maybe when you're finished with it, giving me some feedback on it. That would be really, really great. So I hope this has helped, and I hope it's something that you all try at home because it's a really, really powerful process, and it is the way that I healed myself from fibromyalgia and from epilepsy and occipital neuralgia. So have a wonderful day, everybody, and thanks so much for joining me. Have a great day. Bye.